Hello and welcome back to another video. Today I've got some new art supplies to try. Now this was actually an art box that I had got over the summer. This was the Paleful Packs and I believe it was either July or August. And this was an oil paint pack. So I like to get art boxes from time to time if I just want to try something new or if I'm kind of in an art rut. I find these are great to give you some inspiration to try new art supplies. Now, I wanted to try this box because I don't use oil paints at all. I tried water-soluble oil paints once on my channel, and I'm pretty sure I have a video of that, so I'll go ahead and link that down below. But I haven't tried true oil paints. So if you are interested in checking out any of their art boxes, I'll go ahead and link all that info down below. But for today's video, we're just going to play around with these oil paints. We're going to do some color mixing and some swatching, and I'll probably do an artwork. I want to use one of these canvases, but I'm just going to go through everything that came in the box real quick. So it came with these Winsor and Newton Winton oil colors. Here, this was a 6 set. So we have cadmium yellow pale hue, cadmium red deep hue, French ultramarine, viridian hue, yellow ochre, burnt umber. It also came with these other two colors, and I'm not sure why they sent another yellow and another brown. However, this does look like maybe a burnt sienna type brown. I can't really tell, but this is the Williamsburg Artist Oil Colors in Still de Grain. Don't know what color that is, some type of brown. And then this is Permanent Yellow Light. So I'm hoping maybe this will be a bit more of like a yellowy yellow, a cool yellow, whereas this would be a warm yellow. Now, just talking about the oil paints here, this is a really good range of colors, just talking about this 6 set here. However, I wish they would have included a white. So I did go ahead and buy a white oil paint on my own. This is the Gamblin Titanium White, just so that I can mix lighter colors. Now, I didn't get a black oil paint because we can mix black from this. So if we use French ultramarine and burnt umber, you can make a pretty good black with that, and I'll go ahead and demonstrate that while we're swatching them out and doing some color mixing. But if you don't have a burnt umber, you can always use a really dark red, a really dark blue, and then add a touch of yellow in it to desaturate it. So that's going to make a very dark purple, and then add your yellow to it to just desaturate it enough, and that can be a very close black too. So maybe we'll try both mixes. We've got a bunch of brushes here that came in this set. So one thing about these boxes is they do give you enough supplies, so you'll be able to use it for these projects, but you'll also have some left over for another project if you want. So you definitely have time to try the products out to see if this is something you want to get into. But we have a bunch of these Robert Simmons brushes. We have a 1/2 inch angled brush. We have a 4-inch flat brush here, or number 4. It's not really a 4-inch, but a number 4. And then we also have a number 2 round brush. We also have this Simply Simmons 6. It just says a bright plat, whatever brush this is. It's an oil brush, and it's sort of like a bit stiffer. So this might be nice, I don't know, to maybe mix, but it's one of the biggest brushes that they gave in the set, so this might be nice to use for like a background color. But it's interesting that this is a little bit stiffer and these ones are a little bit like softer. It also came with a pencil here, so I guess you can use this to draw out on your surface that you're using. And then it came with quite a few canvases here. So we have this larger canvas. This is an 8x10. We have 3 5x7s. And then it also came with a gesso board. And I have never used a gesso board. And this is very smooth. So I don't know how oil would stick on this. But I feel like I want to try it on some of these canvases. So I don't know if I'll use the little one or the big one. Now, this box also came with this Daniel Smith refined linseed oil. And it says here that this is used to increase the flow and transparency of your oil colors, and it can also be used to increase the time that they're wet. Now, from what I know, oil paints stay wet for a very long time, so I don't know if I want them to stay any wetter than they normally do. But I do like that you could use this to increase the transparency of it. So let's say you didn't want a lighter version, so you didn't want to use white to come in with that. You wanted a little bit more translucent, like let's say you wanted to do a wash in the background, you could come in with this and do that. Now, I didn't know anything about oil brushes either or how to clean them. So I did go ahead and look up a video on how to clean them. And it says you can just use odorless mineral spirits. And I have lots of odorless mineral spirits because I use that with my colored pencil pieces. So I'm going to be using odorless mineral spirits. I'm just going to put it in a jar here, but I'll go ahead and link that video down below if you're interested. But it says just to put it in the jar, you can clean your brushes off and then let it sit there for a few days, and all the paint will kind of settle to the bottom, and then you can pour off the odorless mineral spirits and reuse it. So I don't know if I would reuse it for colored pencils, but if I wanted to paint again, you could just kind of pour that off and reuse it. So with all of that said, I just want to get right into playing around with these and doing some color mixing. Okay, so I just put a little puppy pad down here on top of my desk just because I didn't want to get oil everywhere. I wasn't sure how messy this was going to be. And this here is just an acrylic pad. So I just took one of these out and I used some black acrylic just to go over top here, just because I want to test how opaque these paints are first, and then we'll do some color mixing. And this is actually just a little piece of glass from a frame. It was a 5x7 frame, and I just gessoed it, and then I did like a gray background, sort of have like a mid-tone palette. This was sort of a do-it-yourself. I could have done it a little bit lighter. It might be a little bit darker than a mid-tone, but it's going to be good enough. And I've used this with acrylic and gouache before, and it's fine. So I figure we'll try it with the oils today. So what I'm going to do is just put a little dab of all of these over there. We'll swatch them out, and then we'll do some mixes. And I'm just going to be using that for flat brush, just because the other one's a little small and the other two are a little big. And then we'll just see. So this is the cadmium yellow pale hue. I'm just going to do a dollop on there. Now, like I've said, I've used water-soluble oils once before, but it's kind of a little intimidating using oil paints for whatever reason, and I think that's why I've kind of steered clear of them. But I use a lot of Winsor and Newton brands. Like I use their brand for a lot of other mediums, so I feel like these should be good quality paints. All right, so this is the yellow ochre. So we had the cadmium pale hue, cadmium red deep hue, ultramarine, French ultramarine, viridian hue, yellow ochre. Let's do yellow ochre down here. And again, I don't know like how much of each paint I'm going to need. Acrylics, depending on the brand that you get, or depending what series they are. So series 1 being like more student, and series 3 being more like professional grade, I guess, although the student ones are sometimes just as good, but sometimes the professional ones are a little bit more opaque. So you might need less of that to cover the area that you need. So usually that's a difference. I'm going to put a little bit of the yellow and the other brown down here too, just so we can see. Oh yeah, this is a little bit more of like a cooler yellow, but they're very, very close, like, to be honest. So I wish they would have given us a different color. However, if the opaqueness is different, then that might be a good enough reason to have put this in. Like, let's say this is very translucent and that's very opaque. So if you want it more on the translucent side versus opaque side, that might be enough of a difference. And this just looks like a very dark brown, just kind of like that. These look a little drier though, I am gonna say. These definitely look drier than these ones. Like, these ones look very like creamy, juicy, and those are definitely more dry. Okay. So I'm just gonna dip my brush in the odorless mineral spirits there just to kind of get it just wet a little bit. Let's go ahead and try this cadmium yellow. I'm going to kind of like mix it up a little bit because there is some oil down there. So I want to make sure I'm getting a good chunk of it. And let's just try this here. Oh, these are okay. I thought I was going to need a lot to cover a little area, but these definitely cover quite a bit. So actually I'm going to try to put some of that back. And I've just got this piece of paper towel up here. And I'm just going to use this to kind of wipe these colors off, and then in my odorless mineral spirits, and then wipe it off again. And that's kind of how you clean these brushes according to that video. So that's how we're going to do that. Okay, so I can definitely take less paint. So this is our red. So far they're both a bit, that one's maybe a little bit more opaque, that red. And swishing this around in the mineral spirits is definitely rinsing it off very nicely. And I don't have a whole lot in this jar either. I just poured a little bit in the bottom. So it'll be interesting to see if I leave that sit for a couple of days. I've just got a little bit left in there to see if I let it sit for a couple of days, if it will actually all kind of sink to the bottom and you can reuse it. Okay, here's our blue. Oh, that's definitely transparent. And that's okay, because I feel like the Winton oils from Winsor and Newton are a little bit more like student grade. So to have a little bit more transparency. And when I'm wiping this off in the odorless mineral spirits, I'm also trying to wipe most of it off onto the palette or onto my paper towel, just so I'm getting the same like consistency with these. I don't want to have more mineral spirits that I'm picking up with one of these. Now, I wonder if there's a medium that you can use to make these more opaque, but not change the color. You know, like if I didn't want to use white, I wonder if there's something that you could use to change the color. Instead of using the linseed oil, because that says that's going to increase the transparency, but they're already very transparent colors. All right, so let's try the yellow ochre here. Oh, that's nice and opaque. Okay, let's go for the burnt umber. And again, I really don't need a whole lot on my brush for these colors. Now this one is, it's feeling not quite as translucent as some of those other ones, but definitely more translucent than the yellow ochre. Okay, I'm going to rinse this really, really well because I want to go into this other yellow. And again, I'm just going to make sure I don't have any extra odorless mineral spirits. Yeah, okay, so even though this looks a little drier, once you start putting your brush in there, it is creamy. And I feel like this is the same opacity as the other yellow, really, but it is a little bit more translucent. Let me put it up here next to this, or not translucent, just a little bit lighter. But honestly, like right next to each other, they look so similar. I feel like they could have given us a different color, or I wish they would have given us a different color. But again, I didn't pick these colors. So sometimes, yeah, sometimes you get some colors that you wouldn't really want. Okay, this one definitely feels like a little more like pasty, not as creamy. Oh, yeah. But it's definitely got that warm side. It's very like chunky, like very, I don't know, like if you can see those chunks in there. Like it's a very different consistency than the other ones. I'm not liking that. Let me just try a little bit. I think you can use the odorless mineral spirits too to kind of thin things out. That's what I'm gonna do. Still like chunking. I don't know if we're gonna use this color at all. Let me try some of the linseed oil with that color to see if that's going to help. Maybe that one just needs a little, and that was a Williamsburg Artist Oil Colors, Still de Grain. That was that color there. So if you're familiar with oil paints and you know the difference between brands, because I don't, let me know if these are supposed to be professional, student grade, if their paints are usually consistent. Maybe this is just an older tube that I got, but I am going to open up. Oh, geez, that is on there. Oh, really hard. Okay. So that was on there really hard, but when I took it off, the seal is actually in the top of the cap here, and it's kind of got some stuff around it. So I'm kind of surprised that didn't leak, but I don't want to just go ahead and pour this right onto my palette. So I'm just going to use like a little pipette here and just take some and drip a little bit down here, and then I'll wash this out really well afterwards. Just because I don't want to make a mess, but I definitely wouldn't be putting this on its side, and even just closing it, it's a little kind of tight, like I can tell some of that got around the cap and gooped it up a little bit. But let's see if we take a little bit of this and a little bit of this. Okay, it feels like it's definitely getting like creamier using that linseed oil, so maybe there's something to that. I'm just trying to like get enough to kind of maybe have the same opacity. I don't know. And then let's try this here. Okay, it's definitely a little smoother. Like I'm not seeing as many chunks in that. So that's okay, but I'm not sure that's my favorite paint. So I might be avoiding that one a little bit. All right, so let's play around and just see what we can get. And since these two colors are really so similar, I might not even use this yellow a whole lot. I might just stick with the Winsor and Newton ones. But I'm going to see if I can get a little chunk of this and a little chunk of the red. Now, when we're color mixing, you want to always do a little bit more of the light color and a little bit less of the dark color. And I want to see if I can get like an orangey color here. So let's go ahead and put this down. Oh, that is a really nice orange color. And just look how like smooth these paints are compared to the Winton ones, or whatever these are, the Williamsburg. No, these were the Winton's ones. The Williamsburg ones are not my favorite. Okay, so I like that. So add just a little bit more red to that. See if we can get like a pyro orange, dark reddish. Or almost like maybe like a true red kind of thing. Yeah, okay. I say true red, but I mean like a little bit of a warmer red. I'm just going to add a dab of that yellow in there. So I like that. You can see the difference between those reds there. So let's wipe this off. And I'm going to grab some red. And let's grab some blue and try to make a purple. Just a little bit more blue. I think I need a little bit more blue. Let's go. I'm going to add a little bit of the odorless mineral spirits just because I feel like that's helping the flow better. That's a really nice purple there. So I like that. That one's a little bit more reddish for me. So let's, while I've got this on, I'm going to add a little bit more of the red and a little bit more of the blue so I can make a very dark purple like I was telling you about. And then we'll add a little bit of yellow to it. So I want like a very dark color. So this would be maybe just a little bit more red. So even almost that makes a very dark color right there, making those two mixing these two colors. But if we add just a tiny bit of yellow in there, it'll kind of desaturate it. So it just pulls that purpley color from it and we get a really nice black. And then if you want it to lean a little warmer, you have a little bit more red in your mix. If you want it to lean a little cooler of a black, you have a little bit more blue in your mix. So that's really cool. And let's just add a little bit more of that, the odorless mineral spirits there. And you can kind of see the undertone is still purple, but it's makes a pretty cool dark black color. And you can add a little bit more blue to that if you want. So like I said, you can kind of tone them. If you want it to be a little bit more yellowy, then you add a little bit more yellow to it. Okay. So let's see how the yellow and the blue mix to see what kind of greens we can get. And so I'm going to grab some yellow here. I'm going to grab some blue. I'm trying to grab like little areas that I haven't really touched. That makes a pretty nice green. I like that. If we want it to be a little lighter, we can grab a little bit more yellow. Maybe even a little bit more yellow. That blue is pretty powerful. I like that. And then let's say we want to make it a little bit more earthy. We can add a little bit of red into this mix and get like a brownish green. That's a brown. That's still a really nice brown, actually. That makes a really pretty brown. But I want it to be an earthy green color. So kind of like that. Add a little bit more yellow if we want to kind of go back a little lighter. But we can definitely mix some different greens in there. Let's just see. Let's swatch this Viridian here. It's a really pretty green color. I want to see what that and maybe some yellow would make. I think that would make like a vibrant green. Yeah. Ooh, that would make like a very nice bright green. I like that mix too. Let's grab a little bit more of that. Yeah, that's like a very nice bright green, mixing those two together. So we have some options for greens. Very cool. Let's do the burnt umber and the French ultramarine to make another black. This is a very easy mixture to do. So we'll get a little bit of our burnt umber, a little bit of black, a little bit of blue. I mean, And you've just got to kind of play around with how much of each you need. And I'll swatch this right up here so you can see the difference. This makes like a very nice like black. Whereas these ones we can get a pretty dark color. And actually, let me even try to see if I can get it like that black, because the other ones are still very purpley. So I'm going to add a little bit more red, a little bit more blue, just to kind of wet this up again. And then I'm just going to wipe that off. And I'm just adding those colors in until I kind of get, this is a little more grayish. Yeah, a little more brown. It's getting a little closer, but it's still more on the brown side. But I mean, if that's all you have, you can still get something that's close enough. But I don't mind a dark like black that leans a little purple. That looks really nice, and it gives a little bit more depth to it than just using a black. But the French ultramarine and burnt umber, or any kind of ultramarine and burnt umber, make like a quick and easy black as well. So let me see, what other mixes do I want to try to do? So if we want like a burnt sienna type color, we can take our red, and we can take just a little bit of the burnt umber, and that will just kind of warm it up. I take a little bit of the odorless mineral spirits in there too. So this would be like an Indian red kind of thing, or the very dark red. But we get a little bit of a warmish, reddish brown there. So I like that. Let's see what mixing our blue and yellow ochre, and maybe Viridian and yellow ochre would do. It's not really one that I use when I want to mix greens, but sometimes you can get some interesting colors with them. So this would definitely be more desaturated because there's more colors in the yellow ochre than there is in just the yellow. Well, this might make a nice green color there. Yeah, I like that too. It's a nice dark green. So that was the yellow ochre and French ultramarine. And then let's try it with the Viridian. So I'm just going to bring this down here and grab a little bit of our Viridian. And again, because the Viridian makes brighter greens, I would assume this would be a little bit brighter of a green. We'll mix it right here. So yeah, a little bit brighter, just a little more desaturated, a little like brownier than the bright one there, but I kind of like that green too. So we definitely have a lot of options for mixing. And just for demonstration, let's just use this yellow here and some of this blue. And I know this is going to make a nice green too because they're close together on the color wheel. So a cool yellow with a blue, which is naturally cooler, will always make a better mix than a warm and a cool color, if that makes sense. But this definitely is very, very close to this first one up here that we did. It's just a little bit like cleaner of a mix, if that makes sense, because this is a little closer to the blue than this yellow is, but they're very, very similar. So if I'm wanting to make like very bright, clean green colors, then I will choose a cool yellow over a warm red. But if I'm already using a warm red in my piece and I don't want to introduce another color, then the warmer red, the one that just leans a little closer to red than the other yellow does, then it works just as good. So for me, these colors are coming out opaque enough. Now, obviously, they don't all cover like a black background, but if we have a white background like this on a canvas, I feel like they're doing good enough. They're very smooth, very easy to use, very easy to mix. So I kind of want to try doing a painting with these. So I'm going to clean this up, and I'm probably just going to clean this area up, and then I'll leave some of my bigger color splotches here that we can use. And yeah, let's try doing a painting with these. So I decided to challenge myself and do sort of a complementary painting. So I'm going to be focusing on greens and reds for this one. So I'm using that yellow and the blue to mix up a green. And this is sort of like a mid-tone green here. And then I'm going to pull a little bit of that red that was in this set to make a little bit of a darker green. And I'm just going around the edges and using this to darken it up. Now these paints layered so nicely, so smoothly. I never thought I would get into oil paints, but I think I'm kind of hooked. And I'm actually planning to do a couple more pieces. I want to do like an orange and blue themed one and a yellow and purple themed one, since this one is red and green. So I'm just taking that red, I added a tiny little bit of yellow to it, and I'm just filling in this pepper. Since this is such a small area, I really don't need a whole lot of difference in my red because there's going to be some shadows around the edges and then a highlight. So I'm just really filling it in with that color. And these paints, they go right over the canvas so easily. I don't know if this canvas is just really smooth. I'll have to try some other canvases with these, but they all worked very well together. Now I tried using the Viridian in that, but I didn't like how it mixed with the red. So I'm sticking with the yellow. I used the yellow and blue to make a green again. And I'm just pulling in some red to darken that up because of course red and greens are opposite. So these are really great natural colors to create shadows. So you can see even though I'm putting green over top of this, it just looks like a very dark red at this point, and it creates a very natural shadow. And I was worried that this would start like scraping up the paint underneath because I'm putting it right over top of the red, but it didn't at all. They mixed and blended really nicely together. I'm taking that very small brush and a little bit of the white to create a highlight here. So I got a little bit on the green area, and then there's not quite a strong highlight on the red part. So I'm actually trying to get it to blend in with the red here and create more of like a pink highlight because that's how the reference photo is. And this is working out just beautifully. So if I really wanted a strong highlight, I would have to let this dry and then come on back with the white again once it's dry. But these are just blending so nicely. I'm really impressed with these. And I wanted to go with a green background, but I definitely need it to be lighter than the green that's in the stem of this pepper. And I wanted it to be a little bit different. So since I've been using the yellow and the blue to create my green, I did the yellow and the Viridian to create a very bright green. And then I used some white to just lighten it. And this is what I used for my background. I wanted it to be very bright and kind of pop. Might be a little bit too bright, but I kind of like it too. And then I'm just coming in with this angled brush, and that's what I'm going to use to get the background in. Now the pepper's still wet, so I'm using the tip of that angled brush to kind of come around some of these edges. And I do end up smudging a little bit, but I kind of just smudge it back into the pepper. But this brush worked really well to kind of get around the edges here. And this paint went on so smoothly, covered the whole background. There were hardly any brush strokes. I kind of went over a little bit and tried to smooth out some areas, but it went on pretty flat and very nicely. So I'm actually really impressed with these. I think I might be using oil paints more often. I'm definitely going to start with some smaller projects, but this is why I love these boxes so much because you're never going to know what you're going to fall in love with, um, what your next like medium that you just really enjoy is going to be. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, if you're interested, I'll leave the link down below. I think you can go and buy some old boxes as well. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next video. Bye!